beg leave to ask the question standing in my name on the order paper, but not as it appears on the speakers list for today. Lords, I thank the noble Lord for that predictably bland reply, but the Brexit Secretary, Mr. David Davis, said to me recently that his job in Brussels is made even more difficult if every time he makes a small advance there, he's promptly undermined by the BBC. My Lords, is the government aware that the BBC cannot give a cross-party group of MPs a single programme since the referendum which has examined Brexit's opportunities? Not promoted their opportunities, my Lords, just examined them. And secondly, my Lords, is it acceptable that the BBC has not debated the ideas behind the project of European integration and whether they are still valid today?
The noble Lord comes from a particular viewpoint, and we understand that he takes the coverage of that very seriously, but he also knows that the Royal Charter has made the BBC independent, and it is very important that ministers do not get involved in the editorial opinions and conduct of the BBC. The independence is guaranteed in the Royal Charter in Article 3, and secondly, I would say to the noble Lord, there is an established complaints procedure. What is different now is that there's a unitary board holding the Director General, who is the Editor-in-Chief, responsible, and also what is new is that Ofcom have a code and they are the regulator for the first time of the BBC. He can also complain to them.
The noble Lord aware that the noble Lord Pearson and those of his ilk would not be satisfied, and indeed, if every programme that the BBC put out in current affairs started off with a litany which said confusion to the Commission and down with the tyrannous EU. That wouldn't be enough for them. My Lords, it's vintage Trump. I didn't say it. If I said it, I didn't mean it. If I did say it and I did mean it, nobody believed it. My Lords, it's the last screech of a dying cause.
My Lords, I think the noble Lord Pearson is much more balanced than that, and he knows that a small portion of Brussels is part of a healthy and balanced diet.
My Lords, I don't blame the Minister for the answer which he read out then, but doesn't he think it, just as an individual, as a private person, that there is something wrong when out of 4,275 guests talking about the EU on BBC Radio 4's Today programme between 2005 and 2015, only 132, 3.2%, were supporters of the UK's withdrawal from the EU. Frankly, the BBC has become the supporter of a foreign organisation called the European Union. And couldn't he just quietly whisper in somebody's ear, get your act in order, because you do owe a duty of impartiality?
I agree they owe a duty of impartiality. I agree with my noble friend on that. I don't think anyone's particularly interested in what my views as a private person are, but as a minister, I do care that the ministers do keep out of editorial decisions, and I do think that this question of impartiality is largely a matter of opinion. I mean, for example, I happen to be reading a letter to a pro-European website that complained that the BBC had put Nigel Farage on BBC Question Time 31 times since the programme began.
Does the noble Lord the Minister, following on that, not agree that as every political party, including my own, and factions within every political party complain about BBC coverage, particularly on Brexit, that it's clearly being very successful at following the impartiality guidelines put forward in the new Charter?
I think the BBC do a very difficult job well, but of course it's for members of the public, including noble lords, to follow the complaints procedure, which is very easy to do, and the BBC receives 200,000, I think, comments on their programmes a year. It's very easy to do, and of course now, as I said before, Ofcom is there to make sure that they stay within the code.
My Lords, as we abandon EU institutions, does the noble Lord the Minister agree that we should be bolstering rather than bashing our great British institutions? And one of the most internationally respected and well-known which needs bolstering is the BBC.
Well, the BBC needs supporting when they do things well, and they also need to get their house in order when they do things wrongly.